on our 2-week adventure to 4 destinations. We got to experience the bustling city of Istanbul, float above and toured underground Cappadocia, basked on the Kuşadası beaches, explored the picturesque island of Samos, and so much more. This trip was an incredible experience, so get ready and let's relive this together. We just made it to Istanbul. This is our first stop out of 3 places in Turkey that we are going to in the next 2 weeks. Let me first do a little room tour. It's gonna be a very quick room tour, but this is the room. We're staying at the Rast Hotel. It's a pretty popular area. It's like the older part of the city. Then this room also comes with a little balcony, which actually looks out onto the street there. I've never been to Turkey before and I'm really excited. I think we're just gonna get ourselves freshened up. After we got ourselves settled in a bit, we took a walk outside, and the area we were staying in is called Sultanahmet. I apologize in advance if anything is mispronounced. I'm trying my best here. What I was surprised to see was there's actually so many street cats around the area. If you're not a fan of cats, maybe just try to avoid them as best as you can. There were tons of mosques in the area, as well as a couple of the bazaars, but we'll see a lot more of that tomorrow. We ended up finding this restaurant with a beautiful view and had our dinner there that night. We walked back to our hotel and called it an early night because we had a full day ahead the next day.
Ooh, look at these.
There were tons of food options, including a bunch of Turkish pastries. I wish I knew all the names of them. The one I liked the most had a potato stuffing in it. It was delicious, and the view on the rooftop was absolutely stunning. Today we're gonna go check out a few spots. One is the Grand Bazaar, so that's like one of the most popular spots, basically this huge market with everything that you can imagine. And then we're gonna check out a couple of the mosques. Everything is super close to where we're staying, which makes it really convenient. It's gonna be a perfect day to just enjoy the city and explore as well. And we're good to go. The area we were staying in was super walkable, so we just walked over to the Grand Bazaar, and this is one of the world's oldest and largest covered markets. There's over 4,000 shops if I'm not mistaken, and it just goes for miles and miles it seems like. There's everything and anything you could possibly imagine, including some brand name items and even some jerseys if you're looking for some sports attire. But you can even see here, it just feels like it's never ending. We ended up finding this little coffee shop that was just around the corner and got ourselves a nice pick-me-up before we kept the day going. As we kept walking, we stumbled into this area that actually turns out to be a university campus. But what really got us was seeing this mosque, which was the first of a few that we stopped into. There were so many booths even along the streets as we kept walking, and we found our way to the Spice Bazaar, also known as the Egyptian Bazaar. The next mosque we found is called the New Mosque, and this is known for some of its beautiful domes and tiles. Seeing it in real life, as well as at any of the mosques we went to, was so fascinating, especially knowing how much detail and history is behind each of these buildings. We kept walking around the streets and there were a ton of different shops, candy shops.
Oh, that's so cool.
There was no shortage of baklava as well. We didn't indulge just yet, but we did make our way to a nice patio and had a drink before we kept exploring the city. The last site for the day for us ended up being the Blue Mosque, and this was the only mosque that we actually went inside of. What we found out was Most of the mosques had pretty busy lines and you would have to wait, especially during peak hours. So this one we went to around 6 p.m. There were no lines to get inside, which was amazing, and the interior was so beautiful and so detailed. I know everything is so beautiful as I'm saying it, but trust me, it really was. We walked over to this restaurant that we found for dinner. It's called Garden 1897, and this was actually my favorite dining experience that we had while we were in Turkey. The service was amazing. I ended up getting this giant chicken. It's quite a masterpiece.
Princess chicken or something.
A princess chicken. After a long day of exploring, the next morning hit me like a ton of bricks. Oh, they have different fries today. It is currently Wednesday. I had the worst jet lag last night. I woke up at 3 a.m. I was tossing and turning for at least 3 hours. If you stay in the old city area, all the mosques are here, so whenever they're doing prayer, you can basically hear it through the area. I know they do it at 6 a.m. so when I heard that happening, I knew I was done for. We ended up just having breakfast, and I came back and I took a nap. But today we're going on a boat tour. Let me get you the pamphlet. It basically goes along the Bosphorus. This is the map of all of the places that it goes. They have different times that it departs. When we were researching it, it says sunset is typically the most recommended time because I'm guessing the views, sunset, and all that are a lot more beautiful. But we're gonna do the 4 o'clock one just because it works better with our schedule. Before it was time for the boat ride, we had a couple other places we really wanted to check out. First was Topkapi Palace. I've heard amazing things about Topkapi Palace, and what I didn't realize and should have expected is how busy it is. So again, there are a lot of lines. This is as far as we made it before they turned us away because we realized we needed to wait in line to get tickets. But nearby there's actually a park, Gülhane Park. Even though we found this by accident, it was such a nice way to spend the afternoon, and if anyone has some spare time while they're in Istanbul, I would highly recommend this as a very budget-friendly way to spend your afternoon.
Going in a circle. Oh yeah?
And then it was finally time to meet up for the Bosphorus tour. I'm pretty sure there's a bunch of different tour companies that offer this, depending on the type of experience that you want. Ours was a guided tour, and I love that we were able to learn more about each of the areas as we were passing along it on the boat. Even though we didn't get to see all these areas on land, it was such a great way to see more of Istanbul, and it makes you realize how much more there is left to explore. As we finished the boat tour, we heard great things about the fish sandwiches, so we had to try one for ourselves, and that's basically how we wrapped up our stay in Istanbul. The next morning was an early one. We headed to the airport when it was still pitch black outside. We made our way to our next stop. There's a lot of things I learned to appreciate in the Istanbul airport, and I gotta say the napping chairs were probably my favorite. But we got ourselves a coffee and we hopped onto the plane to our next destination. We made it to Cappadocia. I am speaking quietly because Trevor is taking a nap. We've just checked in to the hotel. This is called the Cappadocia Caves Hotel. There's a bunch of them around this area, which is basically what people typically come to stay at. This one's super cute. I feel like it's really nice because there's still one window and there's some sunlight. It's pretty spacious and everything is in this stone. I think it is technically considered a cave suite, but it's not like underground or fully be immersed within the cave, which some of the suites are. The flight itself was fine. It was actually really short. It's about an hour and 15, an hour and 10 minutes from Istanbul to Cappadocia. It feels completely different because we've just come from a city and you can just see so much nature and then all of the mounds of rocks that are crazy. Tomorrow is our real full day here, so we're gonna do everything then. But for today, I think we're just gonna take it easy. I'm gonna put some stuff away and then we'll take a little walk around the hotel and pool area. It's so hot. Wow. Oh, look at that. What I really want to find out is where the pool is. And then I guess the restaurant's over there. I see someone in a bathing suit over there. Look how pretty that is. Like I said, that night we took it easy. We walked around the town, which I don't think I mentioned, but we were staying in Göreme. When I researched, it seemed pretty popular for the things that we wanted to do. The town itself was beautiful and such a nice place to walk around. It was peaceful and it was surrounded by these rock formations, which I later learned are also called fairy chimneys. We found a restaurant that was also surrounded by them, and we enjoyed a nice quiet dinner before another early morning. All right. It is 5 a.m. and it's time for the hot air balloon. The bus came to pick us up at 5:15 and we were served a nice little breakfast before we started to board the hot air balloon.
We will your pilot today, and there are some important things I should mention. Firstly, stay in the basket, don't jump out.
I cannot even describe how excited we were to do this, and this has been one of my bucket list items for so long. I've never been in a hot air balloon, and definitely not here. Cappadocia is known to be one of the most famous places for hot air balloon rides. Our pilot had said there was about 100 hot air balloons in the air when we were up there, and when it's peak season, there's even up to 200 to 300 hot air balloons at once. The ride itself was an hour long, but it actually felt way longer because we were so mesmerized by all the views. I haven't seen a balloon land yet. Oh, I can't do that, no. I can't lay down. This definitely is not for the faint of heart if you're scared of heights, but if you can stomach it, I would say it is so worth it. We had a smooth landing, but I gotta say it was pretty crazy to see that thing was holding us up in the air this whole time. We just got back from the hot air balloons. I'm so glad we decided to go on it. To be honest, we were first thinking maybe we'll just go and watch it from somewhere, but if you ever make it to Cappadocia, you have to go on it. It was about €200 per person, which is kind of pricey, but like you just can't compare looking at it versus being in the balloon. It was amazing. We got lots of photos, lots of videos. I would say because it takes off first thing in the morning, it's a little bit chilly, but once you're in the balloon and then once the sun rises, it's totally fine. It's about 7:50 right now, so there's still some time before we head off to the green tour. Breakfast is served at 8:30. I think we're gonna get changed and then get ourselves to breakfast, and then we'll be off all day basically because the green tour goes from 9:30 to 5:30. Go on your green tour. From my research, there are 3 main tours: the red, green, and blue tour. The green tour is definitely more suited if you enjoy the outdoors and want to be on your feet. The first stop we went to was called the Göreme Panorama. This has such a breathtaking view of all the rock formations and cave dwellings across Cappadocia.
1, 2, 3.
We had to get some photos, of course, including some of the dogs that were nearby. The next stop was Pigeon Valley. Yes, you heard that right, a valley for pigeons. When I was talking to the tour guide, she actually said that the name of it really did come from pigeons. There's a bunch of pigeon houses that are carved into the rocks, and they've historically become a farming house for these birds, and they actually collect their droppings to use as fertilizer. We had a pit stop, so we got some snacks before we hit the road again. This is probably one of my favorite places we went to, the Selime Monastery. Each of the rooms that we went to were fully carved out, and it was so fascinating to learn what they were once used for centuries ago. The one we were just in was the winery, but then there's also the cathedral, kitchen, and so many other spaces that were once lived in. And if that wasn't enough nature and scenery, the next stop was Ihlara Valley. This area is well known for the hiking trail, but for the tour itself, we walked through and alongside the river, which was just as beautiful to experience. It's surrounded by these massive rocks, and once you get down to the bottom of the valley, there's actually a little village here, which is where we stopped for lunch. When we were ordering our food, our tour guide said to make sure to try the fish because they actually catch it right in the river. We got back onto the bus. The next stop, which I was also super excited for, was the underground city. This is one of the few different underground cities you can visit, but they believe that there's actually even more that haven't been discovered. I'm not a tall person, but as you can see, I had to duck, so if you are tall, just keep that in mind. Nonetheless, it was still super fun, as long as you're not claustrophobic. For our very last stop, because we're in Turkey, we couldn't go without some Turkish delights. Not only were there Turkish delights, we also got to try some other Turkish delicacies, including this walnut sausage, which don't knock it till you try it, it's actually delicious. By the time we got back to our hotel, we needed a little lay down, so we caught the last bit of the sun before we headed out for dinner that night, for our last night in Cappadocia. Because I couldn't get enough of the hot air balloons the day before, I had to wake up early to see them in the air one more time. The hotel had such a beautiful view. Again, I gotta say, it's not the same when you're not in it, but It's not every day you can wake up to seeing this in the sky. But that wasn't all that happened that morning. We are in Istanbul again. We're supposed to get a flight from here to Izmir. That's where we're staying for the last week of our trip, except we missed our connection. And we didn't even know until we got to the gate and there was no one there. So it's been kind of a rough day. Trevor actually had food poisoning, so he's just gone to deal with that again. I will spare you the details of how that went down, but it was a rough day for him. That combined with the fact that we missed our connection, and now we're at Istanbul for another 2.5/3 hours. It was going too well. Yesterday was such a perfect day, and today was like literally the opposite of that. We're trying to figure out the situation for the transfer now because we're actually going to Kuşadası, which is about an hour from Izmir, the airport. So that was supposed to be booked already, and now we have to reschedule it. So it's a whole thing. But this is a pretty decent airport to be stuck at. There's so much stuff. I've got a refresher, and we'll be fine. We've made it to Kuşadası, and it is so beautiful here. We just made it to the pool, taking it easy. We do have a couple of things planned the next few days that I'm excited to share with you guys, but I think we're just gonna spend today kind of resting after literally traveling for like 11 hours yesterday. I have my Kindle, gonna get some reading done. It is currently 31 degrees Celsius, which is amazing, but also super hot, so we're just hiding in the shade. The next morning we went for breakfast. This restaurant had a beautiful view, and I ended up just getting a simple omelet, but it was still the perfect way to start the day before we headed off for our adventure in Kuşadası. One place we didn't get to go during this trip, but I wanted to point out, is Ephesus. I've heard amazing things about this. It's an ancient city with ancient Greek ruins, and it's filled with history, so I would love to make a trip back and visit. We spent the day in Şirince. I really hope I pronounced that right, but this village was absolutely adorable. You got to walk around and see a lot of local goods being sold. I ended up getting this pomegranate syrup, and it's amazing. They're also well known for their wines and historical architecture. That night we went into town for dinner, and it honestly felt so much like a beach town, which it is in Kuşadası. We found a restaurant which had a mix of different cuisines, including something up my alley, which I did not order. There was even live entertainment, and it was a nice way to end the night after a long day of exploring. Since I mentioned this is a beach town, we definitely had to spend a day at the beach. One of the biggest beaches in Kuşadası is the Long Beach Strip, and along that there are different beaches you can stop at. So we went to Star Beach, and the water was so beautiful, the sand was amazing, and it just felt like such a nice way to spend a day. There are two types of people in the world. Trevor was out there swimming, I was in the bed reading. I did take a dip in the water quickly before we headed for some lunch. The next part of our trip takes place outside of Turkey. I didn't mention this yet, but we ended up in Greece. This isn't a spoiler if you already saw the title and the thumbnail in this video. There's a small island that's further away from the main area of Greece, and it's called Samos. We took a 45-minute boat ride to the island and got a car so we can fully explore the island itself. It's not that big, but there's so much to see. The first place we stopped at was Kokkari. I believe this would be considered a fishing village, and there's such a charm to it. The water was stunning. Something about it just makes you want to dive right in, and we later came back to do just that. We stopped for some breakfast. The orange juice here that's fresh, 10 out of 10. After breakfast, we just walked around a bit more before we kept driving on to our next destination. While Kokkari was a pit stop, we did stay the night at Pythagoereio. The hotel we stayed at was lovely. They gave us a delicious welcome drink. After checking into our hotel, we didn't settle for that long before we headed to the beach.
Alright, we're off to the beach.
We're up in the air, but I'm down for the ride. I could be your sunshine, yeah. Every time you get in line, baby, give me a raise, give me a raise. Every time you get in line.
And since we're in Greece, when you think of Greece, there's a couple colors that come to mind, and blue is definitely one of them, so we had to stop at Blue Street. This isn't as rich in history as some of the other places we went to, but it is definitely worth stopping at, even just for the photo op, which I obviously came for. We had some delicious Greek food for dinner, and the waiter was so nice. He offered us some ice cream for dessert, and somehow we ended up with these shots of ouzo.
I thought we were getting ice cream.
I don't mean any disrespect, but ouzo is probably not my favorite flavor. So we still had to satisfy our ice cream craving, and we found a really cute ice cream shop to get a couple cones for a walk down Pythagoereio. Breakfast before checking out the next morning was delicious, and we got a seat outside. It just felt like the perfect morning, except for the hot air balloons, but like pretty close to it. The sweet pastry with bean paste or something was absolutely delicious, and their coffee machine I definitely had to test out.
It's a latte macchiato.
How did you make that?
God, I had to ask her quite a few questions.
Did you?
She guided me through the process. Why is it in cinematic mode? For our last adventure on Samos Island, we went to Monalates. I'm not gonna lie, the drive up here is not for the faint of heart, and you know it's bad because I didn't even record any of it, but the roads are very windy, just be warned. But once you get up here, the views are absolutely gorgeous. There's mountains surrounding it, and there's a little village that you get to walk through. Like I promised, we couldn't leave the island without taking a dip in the waters at Kokkari. It's so clear, and there was a little bit of cloud that day, but it didn't take away from how relaxing it was to spend some time by the water. Okay, I promise you, this is the very last Greek thing, but when in Greece,
That looks really good.
you gotta eat some more Greek food. The last couple days of our trip were spent basically doing the same things we have been doing and just taking it easy, soaking in the last bit of that 30+ degree weather before we headed back to Canada. We've seen a lot of things through this video and during our trip, but I'd be lying if I didn't say that this is one of my favorite things in terms of entertainment through this trip.